going to be there at the end. And Varga,
Davis and Hamish Lovemore.
both South African crews in that group, which is great news for the home fans.
Yeah, that's Hamish Mackenzie. There's Hamishes on both of those boats, Hamish Mackenzie and David Evans. That boat you can see in the center of the shot right now has got Callum Davis in it. Just for what it's worth, it's his birthday today, so I know what sort of prezi he would like. That'd be a small trip to the podium. Not that that's out of the picture by any stretch of the imagination.
So Rask and Thompson on the far side, red and white boat. Second Hungarian's really struggling at the back of that group to find any meaningful wash to ride.
Yo.
Making a bit of a hard job of it. So I think leading at the moment, I think it's the French, Jeuniesse and Lebay.
And it's a very big and
Vicassi
kind of clumsy bunch.
Varga moved out to the right of the group.
And everybody knows which side.
Urgency. You sense the urgency. The moment they do anything, it needs to be covered. Rask is the one covering it at the moment. He's holding them off. And it's the South Africans, I think, taking the lead. Rask will want to get to their side wash. And he's done that beautifully well. But Vicassi, Varga, Rask is going to have a fight on his hands. Just run out of room to paddle. He's turned around, had a chat with his mate, say leave it. He's going to try and take the V, but even that's run out. And up to the side of Vicassi and Varga. It's going to be a long journey, but it's one worth making.
The Spaniards are off the back, Sanchez and Gomez.
And Rask has settled for the V. He knows the French are going to come up the left side of that group. And he's going to sit pretty there and wait for the French to come and make his life a little bit easier. So Vicassi, Varga, you sense the panic in the whole group as soon as Vicassi and Varga change direction.
I must say that was very interesting tactics there, and very impressed to see the maturity of Hamish Lovemore on the South African boat there. He was far on the right-hand side of the bunch, and he saw the Hungarians going on the left, and he knew he had to go, and as a result managed to get his nose ahead of all the other boats and onto the front wave of the Hungarians. So that was very mature racing from a young guy.
And he did all that without putting himself in any danger of collision. He was very, very mature about it. So fantastic racing. The French, it seems, can't make their way to the side of Vicassi and Varga. And it's going to get a bit stressful for the back three in this group at the moment. They're coming across in front of us now. Second Hungarian crew well off the group now with the Spaniards. So front group of 5.
6 boats on the front, and Vicassi and Varga desperate to try and sort out the wheat from the chaff as they head down to the bottom Uracell turn can on lap 1. Remember, this is the first complete lap. There's no portage at the end of this lap, so they can come off that bottom lap and burn all the way up.
Thanks for pointing out my innumeracy there, Dave.
No,
it was 6, not 5.
You're nailing the laps. Just leave the other stuff to us.
So there goes Rask. He's moving up. That will let the second South Africans get the V, and it's going to be the French and Great Britain who are going to suffer from this. They're going to get the dog end pickings here. Great Britain coming around. They're going to try and take South Africa off the side maybe. But I think, having watched Lovemore in a previous move, he's going to be too sharp for that.
It's a great start from Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis. Dream start for them, sitting on the wave of Vicassi and Varga.
So Rask sat it out on the half V for as long as he could, waiting and waiting for the French to make his life easy. They were never coming, and he had to do it himself in the end. He did it well, and that's fallen well for both South African crews now.
So the pace suddenly comes off that front 6-boat bunch. The Frenchmen sitting uncomfortably on the outside, Jeuniesse and Labe.
France and Great Britain, really, they're going to have to do something to change the shape of this group if they want to get relaxed in there.
What can we expect from Peterson McKintrick?
Well, I'm really impressed that they're at the front at this stage. The Europeans, they came from a long, long way down. Their boat looked very uncomfortable at the Europeans. It looks a lot more comfortable here. So they're not the type of boat that's going to fall back and blow big time. They're going to be solid in the second half of the race. They might not stick with this pace all the way, but I don't think they're in danger of being picked off by too many of the crews behind them.
There's a little chatter going on there. Vikasia and Varga cutting it really tight on that third buoy, making life a little bit difficult for Callum Davis and Hamish Lovemore. And I'm sure there's a little good morning, how's your day been going on in that front bunch.
So there is your confirmation of the front bunch. Hungary, Denmark, 2 South Africans, the French and Great Britain, and a good 15 seconds almost behind the tail end of that group is the second Hungarians.
Who will be a little bit frustrated to be in a observing capacity in the second bunch at this stage in the game, I'm sure.
They're not making any move to close the gap, that's for sure. They're leaving that to the Spaniards, and I think they're underpowered, that second Hungarian crew. I don't think you're going to see them have much impact on this race.
As surprising as it is to say that. Levente Vikashi and Adam Varga.
So France really being strung out at the back of this group now. So the South Africans really getting the best of this at the moment.
And there's a mess of desperate chasers in the background there. Just wondering if there's any point in trying to grind away early on in lap 1 to try and catch up with this front pack of 6.
Round the pontoon, very close to that pontoon. It's upset the shape of the group somewhat, and it's the French that are going to suffer from that. And the group moves on. French just losing contact a little. McKittrick, Peterson from Great Britain really having to put in the hard yards now. They need to get back in contention. They need to get back on that wash. There's the French to fall back to now, which makes their life a little bit more relaxed, but they're going to make it. They're back on the tail. A 5-boat group now. French under 18 driver there. Does that look like he's got a full beard at the age of 17? Or is that just me? Is that on the screen or what?
Great effort early on from David Evans and Hamish McKenzie as well. They found themselves sitting beautifully on a diamond when the French and British crews were scratching and scrambling just to try and stay with the bunch.
The difference between that diamond and the 5th wash is just huge in terms of effort. You've got some good paddlers back in this second group. You've got the Hungarians, Italians, 2 Spaniards, Australians and Germans. But that group is not moving at the same rate as the group in shot now.
So the French blown off the back of that. The GB boys hanging on to the outside wave there.
What the GB boys have got to hope for now is that at this next turn, a little gap opens up on the inside and you can maybe get round slightly sharper. Oh, it's going well for them now. The South Africans are going to take the lead. We get a little break. Vikasia falls into the V. He loves the V. And Hamish Lovemore, again, is he too sharp for the other crews? He is going to be too sharp for the Great Britain crews, and we're left with the dog end again. No, we're not. It's the second South African crew on the right-hand side. We're going to come around Rask, and Rask is going to be not shy of taking on Vikasia. Vikasia's going to have to come around the group. Rask dictates. He's such a small lad. He's not a strong physically paddler, but so strong mentally, and he knows exactly what he's doing. A lot of people would be intimidated by taking on Vikasia and Varga there. Vikasia and Varga, they're going to go to the side wash of Lovemore, and Great Britain finally get a little rest, but Rask won't let that happen for long. He'll want to come around the side of the South Africans, I'm sure, but not while the turn boys are in the way. So Rask finds himself in unfamiliar territory there, picking up the worst of what's on offer. And the South Africans, really impressive, really genuinely impressive.
You saw a little bit of payback time there with Callum Davis and Hamish Lovemore, who were given a hard time of it going around that bottom turn can by the Hungarians. So when they were in the front, they were able to dictate that racing line. They were forcing Vikasia and Varga to now go around the boys. So whatever you could do, I can give it back to you, maybe with a little bit of interest.
Meanwhile, here we are at the front of the C2 race and the back of the C2 race. Still a 3-boat race and just inches in it. I mean, who's going to take that, eh?
The Dubois Danelax.
It is a shame. It was a 12-boat race at the Worlds last year and quite a high-quality race as well. And these are high-quality paddlers, but just not enough to make it a spectacle. And but the drone adds to the spectacle. And that's
Drone's
good.
winning, actually. So there they go. That's exactly what the drone is bringing us. Looks far more exciting from the eye of the drone. Leo and Thomas Dubois-Denilac. The Hungarian crew of Sebastian Simon and Daniel Feyes in the yellow C2. Seems to be a little bit more urgency in the bunch right now. The Frenchman definitely ruling the roost in this 3-boat C2 junior boys decider. It's the Germans in the red boat, Arvid Heine and Jonas Moder.
So live stream apparently is down for a while, but we'll get that back to you as soon as we can. So for now, we're at the front of the C1 race, C2 race, sorry.
Just a reminder, the alternative, if you do lose hold of that live stream, if you do suddenly find your phone exploding with WhatsApps and SMSs saying the stream is down, if you're on course, you can always send people to
A little bit of action
finish
in the
time.
C2 race there. French taking it to them a little bit, just on the approach to the turn.
Some intensity from the Frenchman.
Hungarians and Germans being strung out a little, but early days. French were the quickest away from the start pontoon as well. They've obviously got a turn of speed.
And that's a really
And they're
tight
gonna
turn
use
from the
it.
C2. They never broke their stroke at all. It was done purely through the exit of the paddle stroke and the leaning of the boat. You saw a lot of the sea boats actually struggling with the turns. Not that these are particularly tight turns. They graded 5-buoy turns. But you saw in the C1s a little bit earlier, some of them were really struggled to make those turns tight. But that was a fantastic effort from the Dubois-Denilac C2. And it certainly earned them a 15, 20-meter lead. It's catch-up time for the Germans and the Hungarians. Hungarians suddenly finding themselves at the back. Here we are back at the front.
So still South Africa leading. Still Rask having to pick up what's left in this race in terms of washes. Hungarians struggling to get round. South Africans capitalising on that. Taking it to them, albeit temporarily, I think, but every little helps. So
Hamish Lovemore in the front boat there has become quite an experienced campaigner. He's been around as a prominent junior for a number of years now. He trains with the Max squad and has become a very wily, very strong, very mentally strong young man. And Callum Davis behind him, certainly forming a great combination with him.
I think as with a left shot there, I think you saw the other Evans and Mackenzie taking the lead. Vicassi looked like he was going around the left side of them.
And there's been dramas. This is the German boat that fell out and is now kind of disconsolately getting back on. Well, they've turned back. They're actually heading back to the start venue. So it looks like it's overs cadovers for the German crew. So bad news for Klaas Gebhardt and Moritz Hennies as the C2 race heads in front of the grandstand here. Remember, it's the first full lap for everybody, so they go straight between the start pontoon and the bank where the Portage is located.
And the deficit from the turn has been made up by the Hungarians and the Germans there, and these three are going to be back together very shortly, I think. It's the Hungarians, in fact, that are suffering more than the Germans. Hein and Mode from Germany there, paddling well.
So Gebhardt and Hennies in front of us here. You'll see it off screen, but they're heading into the takeout, the pontoon. There's a bit of intensity about it. Maybe they have got a technical issue that they're going to try and solve in that boat.
No, look.
Man's not looking
No,
good.
it's the
No,
guy
we
in the
have a
back.
man down. We have a man down.
Hennies in the back, suffering from the heat.
So really unfortunate. His partner taking absolutely the right decision, and it's so tough in a K2 when you start feeling down and start feeling off colour. You don't want to let your partner down at
Well,
any
they're
stage.
desperately unlucky as well. They had a huge start. They're right there on the lead boat, then got cut out and pinballed to the back of the group. And here we go at the front. It's all change again. It's a big fight for the V. Peterson McKittrick should have got out of that space much sooner than they did. Caused problems for both themselves and the South Africans. And here go Vicassi and Varga. It's too much for a lot of them.
This looks ominous.
This
It
could
really
be.
does.
Lovemore has got a ride to a silver medal if he can stay there. So it's Davis and Lovemore, the only crew with the strength to stay with the Hungarians. But even that's getting hard at the moment.
Dig in deep, boys. There's gold if you can stay on that wave.
I think gold might be ambitious, Dave, but there's silver at least. They're going to stay there. They're going to last the
Well
distance, I
played.
think. There's not off the back of that wave. They're that far back because the speed is so high. There's a beautiful wave there for them to ride. And there's your 1-2. Second South African still not giving up the chase, but that is some chase.
It's Hamish McKenzie and David Evans.
That is going to be hard work. They need appreciation from the crowd for that one.
Get in there, boys.
It's a long way back. That is a big 2 lengths to catch, but I think they may have made it. And it's Rask and Thorburn and McKittrick and Peterson who are left straggling off the back of that group. Both South Africans back in touch, and that is very, very impressive from both of those crews.
But
that was a real effort from Vakassi and Varga, and they matched it.
yeah, scary. But I think that's fairly ominous. I think Vakassi and Varga showed that they have the capacity to bully this race and really make it their own.
It's changed the nature, though. If Vakassi and Varga bully it now, you've got 2 South African crews together. So it's going to be very hard to catch 2 South African crews working together, I think.
I think what's also going to be interesting is when we get to the Portage, if these 3 boats get together at the Portage, we know the South Africans are really good at running, and they practice a lot at ins and outs. Hungarians are good too, but it also could change the dynamic. It could put a little bit of pressure on the Hungarians, but we'll see when they get to their first Portage. But just great that the 2 South African boats will be able to stay in contention with such a strong Hungarian boat.
I think with the amount of effort that went in from Vakassi and Varga there, they were hoping that would be the break to make them on their own at the front. But the South Africans matched them. More impressed probably by the second South African crew there, that they actually closed a gap.
That was a big ask.
For Davis and Lovemore, all they had to do was stay on the wave. But for Evans and McKenzie, they actually had to gain ground during that period, and that was huge.
Yeah, that effort by Evans and McKenzie was phenomenal, but it's definitely going to have taken something out of them, and they're showing by staying on the half diamond. It's they haven't quite got the energy to get over the first wave, which is a good move. They're conserving slightly on the tail wave there, which in the shallow water it's not bad on this course. The tail wave does work, but ideally they would like to be on that first wave, I'm sure. But yeah, great effort, and let's hope that they can hang in there until the Portage and regain a little bit of juice when they get running on the Portage again.
Second group in shot here. So the French have fallen back to that group. That's Jonies and Lebay. You got Italians, Spaniards, 5-3-1 there. Sorry, I've read the number wrong.
Interestingly, Marco Borgotti's in that group in the Italian boat. Remember, he was man down yesterday. He collapsed in the heat. So let's see how.
Surprised to see him out here this morning after yesterday. But he is there. 5-2-4 there.
Borgotti in the boat with Farsi today. The Frenchman, Janice and Labe, are in the white boat. Up front, the Spaniards, Gomez and Sanchez. And on the outside of that group, it's Cronin and Mole in the colors of Team Australia. Looking very comfortable on the wave. And there's a sense of resignation about this chasing bunch. There's 7 boats together on that chasing bunch. The Hungarians sitting right on the back.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, just making no impact on the race at all. Yeah, I've clearly taken my numbers off a start list that wasn't current, and all my numbers are wrong. So if I get names wrong occasionally, I will try and rectify that as we go.
Well, we nailed these 3.
But these 3 are clear. It's Vakassi and Varga. Varga, of course, the only one, I think, in this race that raced yesterday.
Correct.
And there go the South Africans. And first Portage coming up. Varga Vakassi may not be as tidy over the Portage as South Africans, but I think in terms of speed, they can afford to lose a couple of lengths on a Portage, which I would think would be the maximum amount they would lose. So they're coming in.
That's Lovemore and Davis on the left of screen. Looked like they were going to put down a little bit of a burn coming into the Portage, but it's still Vakassi and Varga lead as they come into the first Portage.
Vakassi loves leading into the Portage. I really don't think he'll let anyone past him, even if they put in a concerted effort. And yeah, Lovemore, he had a little flurry at it. They said no, and he's just backed off straight away. He hasn't had a second go, which is a complete waste of time. He's acknowledged that the Hungarian said no to him, and he's just settled for what is practical. And I think that's really intelligent racing.
We'll expect both South African boats to be quick on the Portage here. Vakassi and Varga, this will be their first acid test on the run. Looks like they're going to come into the Portage first. As Anstott pointed out, the way to do it is to come in hot. It's almost at full pace. 45 degrees. That strong brace from the paddler in the back. Front
So
paddler out
Vakassi,
first.
Varga out.
Out quickly.
Nicely done from everyone there.
All three boats quick. The crowd's letting us know that the South Africans are right in the mix here. Callum
Running
Davis
hard.
and Hamish Lovemore running this thing beautifully on the inside, side by side with the Hungarians.
Hungarians have matched them stride for stride. And it's all going to get in. It's all going to be fairly uneventful, I think. Certainly no dramatic changes to the group.
The Hungarians
Evans,
running it long.
McKenzie nicely into their boats. Very tidy in from Evans and McKenzie. And away go the South Africans. Hungarians content to sit on the wave.
So Hamish Lovemore takes them to the front as the second group goes into the Portage.
These two boats, I think, certainly, I know our boat are very happy to put in the hard miles, so they're going to be hard to catch. But there is a chase group of 4 behind them, which has got some quality paddlers in it.
Nicely run by Team
The
GB.
Danes, it seemed, aren't too good over the land. Bizarre getting in process from the Great Britain crew there. Not sure what that was all about. And the Danes have closed the gap that they lost on the run, just by
Australia
being
and,
a bit slicker.
Australia and Spain leading the third group into the run.
So this group, Australia, Spain, France and Spain. So we've got from Australia, Dooley and Smith, Cronin and Mole. From France, we've got Jonies and Labay. And from Spain, we've got 2 Spanish crews, Gomez and Sanchez, and Gonzalez and Palacios. So first away is the Australian crew of Dooley
And the Spaniards
and
are
Smith.
stopping to empty. That might just cost them their place on the bunch.
Really should have emptied at the beginning of the run rather than the end.
It has.
And there's 3 boats away.
Oh, and there's frustration in that boat. There's a bit of chatter going on. What's the plan? You're going to wait for the other boat to catch them?
And
Surely you put the
Spaniards-
hammer down and try and
Spaniards have backed off. They're waiting for the Hungarians. Chaotic portage from the Spaniards there. And they're going to hope that the Hungarians have got what it takes to get back to that group. But I just
Back-
don't think they have.
catch. Back to the front. It's Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis in that blue and yellow boat at the front. On their left, that intimidating Hungarian boat of Levente Vakassi and Adam Varga.
Listen, every lap that goes by, it gets less intimidating.
Yeah.
They're matching them on everything. They matched them on the portage. They're matching them in movement around the group. They're not being frightened of them, and just moving out the way, around the back. It's how it should be done. A little bit slow getting around the back there. They lost too much ground on the crew that they were dipping around the back of, but they up to speed in no time at all. So a little bit slack on their movement around the group, but pretty well done anyway. All 3 together.
I think that's spot on, Ivan. Actually, I think they would have come into this race slightly awed to be in that sort of company, but after a lap and a half, I think they can bin that idea.
Yeah, they're mixing it with the best crew. You know, we had that Vakassi and Varga crew down as the winner from the start, and they're up there. And the further the race goes on, the more opportunities you've got to do some damage. The portaging always creates an element of risk, and I think they're going to do very well up there, the South African boys.
The 2 chasing boats coming up to the top turn can now.
2 chase boats, and it looks really like it's the Great Britain boat that's a chase boat, and the Danes that are taking the ride. Yeah, Rask is a wash hanger rather than a worker, and the last thing you want to get stuck with in a 1-against-1 is a wash hanger. Yeah. If you're the worker, you're going to be left with an awful lot to do. So Australians, French, and the Spaniards.
The Australian pair setting a fairly solid pace at the front.
So we've got Cronin and Mole at the Australians. We've got Genies and Lebay as the French.
And Sanchez Gomez in the Spanish colours.
And Sanchez Gomez from Spain.
Back with the 3 boats contesting the Junior Boys C2 race. And it's still the Dubois-Donilac. I think they're brothers, actually. I'd love to confirm that. Maybe they're cousins, but it's Leo and Thomas Dubois-Donilac. Maybe somebody can drop us a comment on the stream if they know a little bit more about the Dubois-Donilacs. The Hungarians in the yellow boat, Simon and Fejes. And the Germans making up that 3, Heine and Mode. Conditions absolutely fantastic for racing at the moment. That gentle wind, which tends to come up in the afternoon here in Pietermaritzburg, just takes the edge off that dry heat. Humidity was less than 60%, which does make it a fairly dry and dehydrating heat. Just that little wind takes the edge off that heat.
It does, Dave, but the heat is building here today, and the wind does help with when you're paddling into it. It definitely cools you down, but when you're paddling with it, it's like a vacuum, and it's so hot when you're paddling with that light breeze. Your mouth is dry, everything just dries out. You got to keep drinking, keep hydrated. It's getting hot. The temperature's definitely building out there.
So they come up to the still top turn, and it's Vikashi and Varga back at the front with the 2 South African brews, Mackenzie and Evans, and Lovemore and Davis sitting right alongside them. Hamish had to be quite wide.
Are they not ever? Yeah, they've got a decision again. The Hungarians are going to win that. So the South Africans have got to do some damage if they want to change the result from second and third. But the Hungarians have had their race plan scuppered, I think.
The second bunch turning at the top turn can. Rusk and Thompson. And that third bunch is really not far behind them at all. The Spaniards taking the inside line, making up a couple of handy meters in the process. So there's the summary. 3 boats at the front. Vikashi and Varga. David Evans and Hamish Mackenzie sitting alongside Callum Davis, and the other Hamish Lovemore in the South African boats. And then a minute back. So that kind of separates, not with absolute finality, but it certainly kind of separates the middle race from those chasing the minor placings. Team GB and Team Denmark in that bunch chasing, but then that following bunch, which includes Jeunesse and Labe in the French colours, and the Aussies and the Spanish, are really snapping at their rudders right now. So back with the C2 race, drone giving us a perspective of just how hard these guys are working. It's the Hungarians who've gone to the front. And those boats actually fairly tightly bunched.
Quick burst of speed there at the last minute. So here's the leaders. Vikashi Varga picking a strange option of wash ride in there.
Really wide.
Do one of those South Africans known for shoveling water at the back of the pool? Because sometimes you just think, you know what, I'll just sit wider. But it looks fairly clean. South African paddling. There's not too much splash being thrown up. To Varga, Vikashi.
All right, it'd be good to catch up with the C2s because there's been an uneventful race by and large, but as they've taken that left-hand turn, they cut it very close. We've actually, I think, just missed the action, but there's been a huge splintering of that C2 group. The Hungarians have got away clean. The other two were bumping and barging into each other right against the reeds on the left-hand bank, and suddenly the Hungarians have been gifted an opportunity. So Simon and Fedjes cantering away. The other two, it looked like one of those Dodgem car affairs again with the sea boats that are so prone to. They're trying to keep that boat straight now as they head into what will be their first portage. And the other two are now really trailing. The Dubois Danilacs going wide on the turn.
Both struggling to get around the turn. They'll be losing
and they're looking edgy.
meters every minute there over the Hungarians. They're already on their march back to the first portage. So this looks like the nature of this race has changed dramatically. Got 15-second lead just in a period of about a minute there. And Germans look to be struggling to be keeping up with the French in the background.
Jen, we could just see it in the distance from our commentary position. We didn't have it on screen with the live streaming, but there was all sorts of carnage right on the turn. I have a feeling that it was the Dubois Danilacs who had taken a very close line to that shallow left-hand corner, and one of those boats started weaving and took the other with it, and that opened the door for the Hungarian crew of Sebastian Simon and Daniel Fedjes to go to the front. And they've sniffed that gap, and off they go. So coming into the first portage. The two chasers obviously frustrated by what happened on that left-hand bend in the river before you approach the Eurosteel bottom turn can. The Hungarian pair coming into the portage. See how well drilled they've got this. It's neatly done. Out of the water quickly, onto the run. They haven't even looked back. And here are the chasers. There's about 15, 20 meters in it at this stage. The French pair leading into the portage, driving it hard. The Hungarians looking very comfortable on that 100 meters odd run on natural grass through the portage zone. Emptying the water out on the run, get it done early.
Germans lost significant ground on the French there, and the French, I think, are faster on the water as well. So if the French get in cleanly and away, this could become... Yeah, the Germans are nowhere in sight. In fact, they've been stopped for a penalty.
Oh, my word.
And this race is effectively over.
So we can then join the dots back to what happened on that corner. I think it was the German boat that lost control and must have taken out the Dubois Danilacs on the corner, and that opened the door for the Hungarians to get away. So they're in the naughty box for how many seconds? Let's have a look. They've got a full 30-second penalty. They're up to 20 seconds in the box, pacing around like tigers in a cage. The ultimate frustration, having to sit there in the penalty box and watch the others get away. 30 seconds, they're out of the penalty box and off they go.
At the front of the K2 race, we've got Evans, Mackenzie taking the lead.
With the penalty over now, they're back in the water. 30 seconds is a long way. It's going to be tough for them to get back, if ever. But I'm sure they'll give it everything to try and get back. But yeah, a bit of an unfortunate clash early on in the lap, which led to that 30-second penalty.
And there they are, pulling away from the landing stage. A complete change of attitude in that boat and plan. There's the leaders in the K2, and behind them it's a group of four just coming into sight now. But these three away and clear, and they've got such a distance that even if anyone were to fall off that front group, I think they'd be safe for quite a while. Second group now, Spain, France, Denmark and Great Britain. There they are in shot.
As you saw them going past, you would have seen the spot that earlier was occupied by the Eurosteel supporters. Yesterday made an awful lot of noise as Alec Messina raced to his medal. That spot has now been taken up by boys from Kearsney College. Callum Davis goes to Kearsney College, so that's the Callum Davis support crew. As you mentioned earlier, it's Callum's birthday today, so every time he goes past, the boys all pile out of their chairs and start whooping support for Callum Davis on behalf of Kearsney College.
So this is a rear view from the drone of the second group. You've got Spain leading with Gomez and Sanchez to their left. We've got Peterson, McKittrick, Rask and Thompson on the right, and tucked in the back is Jeunesse and Lebay.
And it's the Australians just behind them.
Trying desperately to make contact. They've gained ground over the last 2 minutes. That's Cronin and Mole of Australia, but it's still a long way back from where they are now.
That
And they
white
look to be
K2
working hard. And at the front, Vicassi and Vargas. Again, they're coming into the Portage. They're doing some damage here. If nothing else, the South Africans are hurting just a little bit,
Mackenzie
but
and
still
Evans,
matching them.
Mackenzie and Evans are good for it.
Both South African crews are good for it.
Look over their shoulders and they've realised that
Now they're just ducking over the back. That's because the Hungarians are coming into the Portage, not because they were outclassed. South Africans are going to go up early. Hungarians are out and away.
really fast
Beautifully
exit.
out the boat by the white boat of Evans and Mackenzie. And it's Lovemore and Davis. Everyone's in contention. Nothing bad's going to happen here.
And Mackenzie and Evans are running this brilliantly. They're actually closing on the Hungarians on the run.
Again, the Hungarians had a concerted effort. And again, the South Africans have covered it. And each time, the Hungarian mindset will go, you know what? Let's not try it again. We'll just save it for the finish. But they're away from the Portage, pulling hard. It's still work to do, especially for Davis and Lovemore. But they're there. They're all in contention. They're all going downhill on the waves. And it's going to be very hard to break this group up now, I think.
And start interesting tactic coming into the Portage.
Davis and Lovemore might be in danger of the nose of their boat going up. It's so hard to tell if they're safe or not. Speeds are so high that they hang a long way back. Second group's broken into 3 now instead of 4. So from that group, we've lost the Danes. Something must have happened on the turn because the Danes are now back with Cronin and Mole from Australia. So it's Gomez, Sanchez, the French, Jeunesse and Lebay, and Peterson and McKittrick.
Looks at the front of the race as we look from our vantage point here in the commentary position that the front 3 have reformed. So Mackenzie and Evans and Lovemore and Davis back in contact at the front as the second group runs through the Portage. The Spanish going into the feed zone.
A strong group of 3 here now. There's the front group. The pressure is still on in that group. There's no relaxation there. And the Hungarians are trying to break these 2. I think the South Africans are up to the job.
But Callum Davis and Hamish Lovemore in the back in that yellow and blue boat are definitely under pressure.
Oh, that was tense moments if you're a South African fan there. I think they're all comfortable.
In fact,
It was a strange thing to do. I think the Hungarians just stopped and let the South Africans come up. Hungarians, again, that's it. That was the end of their charge. They did what they could. It hasn't broken the Africans. And we're going to have another comfortable lap. Speed can drop now. Drinks can be taken. And I think fairly uneventful until we get back to the Portage on the next lap.
we're back with the leading C2s on their breakaway after all the drama of that left-hand turn. The Hungarians back brace from the back paddler to get them around that turn can. But things looking good right now.
Bad news for Denmark, though, is that their crew have come out of this Portage. They've lost touch even with the Australians, and the Danes really are not going to be in the mix for this.
So the second Hungarian boat leading the bunch away from the Portage.
It's Horvath and Bodnar.
Italy just behind them, followed by Spain.
That's Spain, Gonzalez and Palacios, and Borgotti and Farsi, the Italians. And there's the view up the course, just trying to work out where everyone is. There's the leaders in the distance.
I must say, Ivan, what really impressed me on that Portage of the first 3 boats there, the Hungarians went hard. They gave it everything to try and put the pressure on, and they took out early, which means more running time. Like running is faster than paddling. And the young crew of Evans and McKenzie, the speed at which they got at their boat, normally you got to factor in getting out of boat time, which is going to put you slightly behind. And they literally were out their boat and on the land and running level, which is pretty unusual. So they had a great take out there. They've obviously practiced it a lot and a great run. But all crews showing that they've got what it takes, and a lot more hard racing to see, I'm sure.
I think it's really significant that the Hungarians gave it their best shot into the Portage. They ran hard through the Portage, and then again they gave it their best shot coming out of the Portage. And although the South Africans, it wasn't easy, don't get me wrong. They were only just clinging on there, but they did cling on, and eventually the Hungarians broke and said, you know what, it hasn't worked this time, we'll call it a day. Maybe try again later, but each time they do it, the South Africans go into it with more and more confidence.
Exactly, and it's great to see. I think something that's really interesting to note is that the boats of Evans and McKenzie, they're actually under 16. So they've got 2 years left as juniors. So very, very mature racing from them. But also not to write off Callum Davis and Hamish Lovemore. We've seen the maturity that they've been racing with tactically. And the Hungarians have got to be thinking, we know they're strong. They've tried to break away twice. Vargo showed us yesterday the ability he's got. But the Hungarians are matching them. I mean, the South Africans are matching them. So this race is far from over.
You do get the sense, though, that Varga and Vakashi have been testing them. And every time that there's been a real flexing of the muscles, it's come from the Hungarians. Both South African crews have been able to match them. But one wonders whether the control here doesn't still rest with the Hungarians. That's the ominous feeling I get from the front three.
Look, you got 2 South Africans in the race and 1 Hungarian. At some point, you have to try and do something. Whether you fail is fairly irrelevant. But for me now, if the boys on the far side in the white boat, you got Evans McKenzie there. If they lead now, the Hungarians have to drop round the back. Once they drop round the back, it goes back to Lovemore and Davis. And the Hungarians have to come round the back again. And you just keep working the Hungarians over as best you can. And you might not be strong enough to do it. They might just keep pushing to the front. But you have to try something if you've got intention of winning, because you're not going to beat that Hungarian crew back from the last turn. You're not going to do that.
Yeah, the Hungarians looking very comfortable there, but I must say, just from watching yesterday and just knowing the sprint background of Hungary, I think the Hungarians are happier when they're away and in the lead with no wash to ride and comfortable, and their techniques are so perfect and pure that perhaps a little bit of wash riding makes it tough for them. But they're clearly looking very relaxed still and got a lot in the tank. But yeah, watching yesterday when they're out in front, it's hard to stop them. But at the moment, they're not out in front.
Meanwhile, these 2 are, and they're out in front of the C2 juniors, and they're well out in front now. Germans took their time penalty of 30 seconds. That basically put a bomb into the race, and the race is over. And I know almost rules are rules. You have to penalise people when they do something wrong, but it seems a shame to split this race up just for the sake of technicality when it's not a real championship race anyway. But this is Group 2. That's the French, Genies and Labai.
Spain on their outside.
And this looks like a reasonably well-matched, well-organised group now. So all they can hope for in terms of medals is if one of the South Africans, or indeed the Hungarians, blow in that front group. Good paddling, a nice turn from all 3 crews. There's the Australians, Cronin and Mole. But here's the leaders.
And there's a lot of water between the front 3 and the next bunch.
A minute and a half's worth of water there, and that is an awful long distance. So paddles down from Evans and McKenzie. Hungarians take the lead. Evans and McKenzie will drop round the back of them, come up the left-hand side. Lovemore and Davis onto their side.
Evans and McKenzie a little tardy coming around the outside.
I think they seem happy where they are. Now they start to move up.
There they go. Ivan, just unpack it for those that might not be schooled in the art of marathon racing. The various waves and advantages and disadvantages of finding yourselves on those waves?
Well, you got, let's start with the lead boat. You got comfort. You're doing exactly what you want to do, flat water. You're dictating the pace you want to go. Either side of them is a wave that they create. No difference left or right. You get a bonus from having the tail of your boat lifted up by the wave that the lead boat creates, and you're essentially going downhill. If there was a fourth boat in the group, they'd have their nose on the tail of the white boat, and they would be lifted by the boat either side of them and the lead boat. You get double bubble, and life's good.
That's
in
the
that
diamond.
V, yeah.
Outside of that, you're suddenly in economy class. Eh?
Yeah, and fighting for what's left. Now, some people do that a lot better than others. You see some people very happy to pick up the pieces, keep out of trouble. The problem with keep trying to stir it up and get a good wash, of course, is that you start the group rotating and there's relentless speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. And if you are the weakest in that group, sometimes you're better to tough it out on a worse wash and avoid the constant accelerations, because those constant accelerations always lead to exposure of that fifth person.
So the front three coming down from the still top turn here at Camp's Drift. No real urgency in this group. We're heading into that numb middle stage of the race where we're now whiling away the miles. Drone makes it look far more intense, actually.
It's going fast again, I think, out there. I'm not sure which is the real speed, whether it's the double speed drone or is this real speed now?
That looks
Yeah,
more
so
like
maybe
real
it's
speed.
more relaxed
I think we
than
might
it
have
looked
had
at one point.
a little buffer of the feed from the drone, but that's real speed. So Vakashi Varga. To their right, Hamish Lovemore, Callum Davis. To their left, Hamish McKenzie and David Evans. That's the medal race as far as the Junior Boys K2 is concerned. Barring a complete, and it must be said, unforeseen disaster at this stage. These three are head and shoulders above the rest of the field today. Coming down to the bridge, a couple of 100 meters away from the Kearsley College Support Club, so I'm pretty sure you're going to see them out of their chairs. They're out of their chairs already, waiting for Callum Davis, the Kearsley College birthday boy, to come past them, so I'm sure you'll get a good glimpse of them as they come past, as the drone shadows them. Hold that thought.
If you look at the stroke rates there, the Hungarians have still got the slowest of the three stroke rates, even though they're leading. The other boys should, in theory, have a slower stroke rate than the leaders because you're going downhill. But the Hungarians' efficiency is such that the South Africans are having to, keep a fair old pressure on just to stay there.
There they go. There's the support club I referred to a little bit earlier in the background.
There's such a big gap between this lead group. I'm looking back up the course from commentary and no one else is even in sight. They're just about coming into sight now. It's going to be 2 minutes, I think, by the time we get the next time check. And there is that chase pack. Cronin and Mole still not giving up the chase. Doing a good job. It must be so horrible looking at a V-wash there when you're fighting on your own. Here's the front.
Back with the drone shot of the leaders at the front. Vakasha and Varga setting the pace at the front. And Ivan's point about that stroke rate is so clear to see there. There's just an extra 10-15% more effort required from both of these South African crews to sit on the wave, on the wash.
Not sure stroke rate dictates effort directly. It's just more to do with the technique and the efficiency of the technique. But it would be nice if those boys could relax just a little more than they are at the moment. Maybe get a bit more length in the stroke.
Both of these crews of South Africans, boys who love racing, and they'll race in any format. So you'll find that their year is really mixed up with surf ski racing, river racing, and we get this little window in the middle of the year where we race marathons. It's really not a major priority, bar the fact that we've had some successful marathoners.
But how fresh does that keep the mentality? Yeah. Doing the same old year in, year out, day in, day out. Some people can't suffer that. And if you've got other entertainment going on, go down, race a surf ski race, do a sprint race, do a marathon race, river race. It just keeps everything fresh.
Dave, you say it's not a priority for these guys, but I guarantee you that this is their major goal as juniors is to get a Marathon World Championship medal. Everything else is just keeping you going, keeping you happy, keeping you racing, and keeping the momentum going. But their dream is to be doing what they're doing right here. This is definitely going to be their main focus.
The flip side of that argument is where's the downtime in the year? Because the way the season works, we have a busy marathon season, which is going to lead straight into the start of a river season. This is the second place bunch. Aerial view from the drone, which then leads, it's always interspersed with the surf ski season, which is now taking up more and more time. And I know somebody like Hank McGregor, who's been successful in most of these formats that we've got under discussion, now has to cherry pick where he needs to go, because his surf ski season and his flat water marathon season and river season form seamlessly. I think he raced 48 weekends of a year. There's no downtime and no rest.
I don't think it's...
So it is a risk, but I think that's where a coach is really important, and he'll come in and say, and he'll plan their blocks of training and racing schedules and make sure that they have the downtime they need to recover enough to compete the next season. But it's really, really important from a coach's point of view to make sure that they gets it right for his athletes so that they don't burn out.
Totally agree. Racing is, in effect, training as well. So you can plan the racing into your training program. You'll certainly be races you prioritise over others, but half the races you do in the year are just to entertain you and you never train quite as hard as you race. So it's superb training for the guys anyway. I think with watching from the outside with all the South Africans, you see Sean Rice touring the world pretty much relentlessly. It's the travel rather than anything else. So there's a bit of stress for the South African crew there getting out. Evans Mackenzie not quite as tidy this time, but they're already running through the Portage. They're going to be in touch.
The Hungarians are going into the feed zone.
They are going to. Something's bothering them just a little bit there.
Lovemore and Davis have suddenly found themselves at the front. Hamish Lovemore and
South
Callum
African
Davis.
crew's safe.
So they're going to reform, but I'm pretty sure that
the Hungarians under a little bit of pressure here for the first time, and I think Lovemore needs to really just make a point here. I don't think he's going to get away. I genuinely don't. But to make a point would be really good.
What I really liked there, it was nice to see Lovemore and Davis going for it. But what I really enjoyed from that put-in was to see, again, the maturity of Hamish Mackenzie. He put in first, but still decided to hang back and wait for the Hungarians to take off the pull to get them back. Your instinct would be to just go for it and chase down the leading crew, but he hung back, and now he's on that Hungarian wave and potentially saving a little bit more energy and using the Hungarians to help him get back there. So that's very mature racing from a young guy.
And it's really hard to hold off that instinct. There's panic. As soon as someone gets away, your first thought is panic. You've got to get with them. And to take that half a second to look behind and think, actually, it's going to be easier if someone else does this for me, is a huge decision, but a very mature decision.
And he knew the Hungarians were going to go for it. They had to win gold. They're not going to let it go. So he looked across, and it was almost like a very calm look. Everything slowed down for him, and he made the decision, and he slowed down and got on the wave. So a brilliant decision by him. But yeah, Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis going hard, putting a bit of pressure on the Hungarians, and every bit counts. It all counts at the end of the day, energy-wise.
I think that's the first time you've seen anyone put the Hungarians under pressure on purpose and meaningfully, and I think that's going to count, and it certainly dents the confidence of the Hungarians. Meanwhile, second group comes through. Gomez Sanchez being tailed by Peterson, McKittrick, and the French there, Jeunesse and Labai, come through the drinks lane, and they're all going to get in together. It's a little bit tightly packed. There's going to be small problems here for the French at least. There's nowhere left for them to go. They're going to have to wait. Could easily put it in on top of a Spanish paddle there as well, so the Spaniards are in a little bit of danger, but everyone's going to be away. I don't think there's anything going to happen. French will just latch onto the back of the group, and Cronin and Mole, they run down the Portage. They're just going along the same 50 yards behind this group the whole day. To our left on the retirement landing stage, the Danish paddlers, and the guy in the back of that boat is in the Thompson is in all sorts of trouble. It's just too hot for him here today. Italians coming in for a drink. Oh, it's chaos. Bit of Italian chaos. We saw it earlier in the weekend. Just being treated to another bit now. They're going to lose touch with their group, I'm sure. And this is the front end of that group with the Hungarians and the Spaniards coming in and putting into the water.
Ivan, I'm just listening to what you and Ant are talking about and the takeaway from that last Portage. I sensed a little bit of a shift in the power at the front of this race. The tactical control with that breakaway, I felt, has just suddenly moved away from the Hungarians. And I think the balance of power in this race from the Hungarians being shadowed by two slightly intimidated South African crews has just shifted a notch. And I think we've got a serious race on now.
The intimidation has gone now, totally. It will return if they get in from the last Portage together and they have to race 1,000 metres head to head. But for now, they're all equal. And the South Africans finally realise that they can do a bit of damage if the opportunity arises. This is the second group. McKittrick and Peterson taking up the pull there. French have got back in touch after a little bit of a chaotic Portage. Spaniards, Gomez, Sanchez, also very nicely in control of themselves. Italians dropped off from the Hungarians and the Spaniards in the chasing group behind these three. And we'll wait till the turn to get the splits, but the gap between this group and the front group grows and grows.
Now that Spanish crew certainly added a lot of spice to this chasing bunch. So let's zoom back in on the C2 race. And the Hungarians continue to canter away with it at the front. Remember, this race molded by the penalty, the 30-second penalty that was handed to the Germans, Morda and Heine, as a result of that bumping and bashing that went on the left-hand turn, which resulted in the Dubois-Denilax being really taken out of that race and gifting the opportunity to the Hungarians, Pages and Simon, to go away. And they've seized that opportunity with both hands. And as things stand right now, they're in pole position to take home another gold medal for Hungary. And they've certainly looked fully in control of this race. Having been gifted that opportunity at the front, they made it count. They put space between themselves and the chasers, and now they just have to complete the execution.
There's a view of the lead K2s right in the distance, up by the top turn. The second group there, chasing pack of Great Britain, France and Spain. Australians strung out on their own, as they have been for some time. And behind them, these two, Hungary 2 and Spain 2. And just off the back of them was the Italians, who made a bit of a hash of the Portage, to be fair. This is the front, though.
Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis now at the front as they head up to the top turn. The Hungarians just on their outside. Mackenzie and Evans on their rudder. C2 shadowing them around the corner. But it's still Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis, the birthday boy, taking up the pull at the front.
All slowed down now, just waiting for something to happen. And it's the youngsters, Evans and Mackenzie, who take the initiative. Now, if I was Lovemore here, I'd just say no once and just see what happens. But he didn't. He dropped round the back. So all nicely organised in that front group.
I think there's a lot of respect there, Ivan. Lovemore watched the guys race yesterday, and he knows what gas is in the tank. So yes, he could go for a bit, but maybe it's a little bit early. But I'm sure there's going to be a few moments where he starts to test Hungarians and see what they've got in the tank.
Oh, I wasn't thinking of them going for it. I just thought, the Hungarians have to come round them to get on the youngsters' wash, and you could just say, actually, we're keeping it for now and make the Hungarians drop round the back, just for fun.
It would have been quite interesting. I wonder if the Hungarians would have dropped round. I think they wouldn't. Perhaps I think they'll up it again and be proud and make it interesting.
So great view up the course there from the drone. Here's the leaders in the men's C2. Junior men's C2. And we haven't seen the chasers in this race for some time now. So here's the chase group for 4th, 5th and 6th. McKittrick and Peterson doing a great job out there today. Spaniards, Gomez, Sanchez. And the French just making their way around the inside of the turn. All fairly clean. Not much space being left for the French by the Great Britain crew, but they're all round tidily. No dramas. And you can just see back down the track there from the Hungarians to the French C2, and in between them, the lead group in the junior men's K2. Be interesting to see if the Hungarians have another pop at the next Portage.
I think the Hungarians are racing a wily race as well. They're conserving the energy. You can see it's not full effort pulls. They're not wasting unnecessary energy, and I think they're saving the energy for those massive impact moves, which they keep trying to do. And I think there's a few more of those moves we're going to see. They're going to keep just pushing, and testing the other guys coming in and out of that Portage. They've got the speed to back it. Vado, we saw him yesterday. It's a strong boat. But yeah, really impressed by the two South African crews, just matching them every time, coming back. But every effort hurts. Everyone hurts. Everyone's going to be wasting energy every time one of those efforts comes. And it's the guys who are the fittest and the strongest that are going to come through and shine through at the end.
If you fast forward to the last Portage and it looks the same as the previous one that we've seen, South Africans get out 2 or 3 lengths ahead. It's still a big job for the Hungarians to catch up and overtake. It might not be an impossible job, but it's a big job.
Yeah, you've got to start fast forwarding. We're into the closing quarter of this race now, and you've got to start looking for the opportunity to put space between yourself and the Hungarians before you go into that final 1,000 meters. Put them under pressure. You don't want to turn around that final short lap turn with them right on your way, because that's going to be less than ideal scenario for either of these South African boats.
To be fair, your options are pretty limited. What is it you can do to those 2 Hungarians that's going to hurt? You're not going to. Your top speed isn't going to hurt them. Yep. That's fact. Maybe you can pick an average speed that will start to stress them. But on the washes, how fast do you have to go to make a crew that strong suffer? It's virtually impossible for the South Africans to do damage. All they can do is irritate and try and stress the Hungarians coming into one of the Portages. So you get a little bit of a mistake and an opportunity opens up. On the water, I really don't think there's much you can do with them.
Unless irritate is an option. Maybe just try and fluster them, shake the concentration.
Irritate is always an option.
Yeah,
that's one of the tools in your toolbox. And if you just make life difficult for them, so they constantly have to change wash, that's an irritation to them. And if you come into the Portage, swap sides, there's loads of little things you can do just to niggle them. They might all end up being ineffective, but at least you tried something.
Yeah, and the message is very simple. This is not your race to dictate.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's what they're doing right now.
I think one of the hopes of the South Africans will be, and it's probably slightly optimistic, but Vargo raced a very, very hard race yesterday in the heat. He pushed it hard. He opened up 30 seconds over the whole field, every single lap, to win by a massive margin. And we know he's fit. We know he's strong. He's in a class of his own in the singles yesterday. But has it perhaps taken the edge off ever so slightly? Who knows? But we know the Hungarians and how hard they train and what they're capable of, so possibly not, but I'm sure that is the hope going through the South Africans' head at this moment.
You just saw Vakassi turn around and have a little chat with Varga there. So that'll be, what is that in a K2? There's several sorts of chats you have. Are you all right is one of the questions. Completely meaningless question, because the guy in the back always says yes. Yeah. And sometimes he's lying, sometimes he's not, and you have to try and read that as the front man. Or it might be saying, look, we'll cruise down to the bottom turn here at this speed, and when we come out that bottom turn, serious stuff. So, it would be nice to have, microphones in on the group and a bit of auto-translate for Hungarian, but when those conversations start happening, things are either being planned for ahead or they're not going as well as they expected in the first place.
Yeah, you can often see it just from the body language of that conversation as well, whether it's I've got a plan, listen up, or I'm worried, are you all right? Where are they? Are they doing anything? Those are the panicky options, and you can often read that into the body language of that conversation in the boat. But they're heading down to the Eurosteel bottom turn can, and you did point out if there was an opportunity to do anything, it would be going into that turn and then using the burn out of the turn into the Portage. If I was a Hungarian right now, and I was concerned about losing ground on a Portage, that would be your attack space. I really would. I would be aggressive going around those turn cans, and then just gunning it into the Portage.
The Hungarians aren't stressed at the moment paddling down there. That's fairly relaxed paddling for all 3 crews. I mean, they're not in shot now. We're in the second group. So we'll talk about them for now. It's the French, Great Britain and Spain. A long way down. It's got to be 2.5 minutes now. So even if one of the front group drop off now, they're well within the safe zone. Yeah. So no medals from this group. This is a fight for 4th, 5th and 6th. So I would think a good result for all three of these crews either way. Yeah. But here's the front. As we were saying, none of these crews stressed on the trip down to the bottom turn. So there is the opportunity for a vast change of pace at any stage. There's the drone.
Great shot to watch this from.
So we're looking down to the turn from the commentary box. Doesn't look like there's going to be any drama unfolding around the turn. Hungarians cutting quite close. Maybe unnecessarily close.
Yeah.
Especially as they're not trying to do any damage anyway.
And it's Lovemore.
Because they've gone close, they've come wide out of the turn, whereas the South Africans, a more intelligent turn maybe.
The chasing
they're going
bunch,
to come out probably in the lead, I would think. Although, no, the Hungarians are still leading down there. We can see from our commentary box as we, on the camera with the second group.
Joseph Peterson and Oscar McKittrick.
And behind this second group, actually, you've got Cronin and Mole on their own, but behind that, the Hungarians that we've really sort of glossed over are paddling really strongly again.
In fact, all three of those boats you mentioned are working far harder than the boats in the chasing bunch. Far harder. And
Absolutely.
They are working with one plan in mind, and that is to try and narrow the gap. That looked like a very pedestrian procession for 4, 5, 6. It was a pretty disinterested bunch, but that bunch's race is about to change.
Here's the excitement. Second to last portage for these guys. There's only 100 metres to go to the portage, so there's no drama coming into it at all. South Africans feeling relaxed enough to drop into the back. In case the Hungarians come in early, that gives them a second option.
See, Mackenzie and Evans have read it as well. They're expecting the Hungarians to take out early. They don't want to get caught up in that.
Again, really well done by the young guys there. Yeah, they had the choice of sitting on the inside. All three of them be aware of that C2 that's going to be in the way at some stage. Hungarians have moved up enough to let the South Africans in at the end of the landing stage. They've tucked in behind them and so fast out of their boat, those two boys.
All three boats.
But nothing's going to happen here of any significance, I really don't think. The C2 needs to be very aware of what's happening behind them.
They're about to get overrun, I think. And they're heading right down into the middle of the put-in. So now these boys need to have their eyes wide open.
It's all going to be happening. C2 really need to just sit still there.
And Mackenzie and Davis have had to put in.
And everything's okay. It's all okay. Nothing's going to happen. It was tight for a little while. Hungarians again the slowest into their boat and away. You see, if they come out of the last portage like that, you can box them in all the way up that left side. Yeah. That's all the way to the top turn where they can't do you any damage.
And once again, it's Lovemore and Davis
that's a learning opportunity right there. Hold them into the bank. If Lovemore went closer into the bank on this, there's no room up the left-hand side. They're going to be on the outside of the turn. They're still only 2 lengths down coming out of that turn, which is well within their capability, but at least you're doing something to them. So that was Portage 4, only 1 to go.
The chasing trio heading into the portage, but once again we're with the drone having a look at the pace being set at the front by Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis. Back with the chasing trio. The Spanish crew of Carlos Gomez and Miguel Sanchez.
These three are also going to come in with a C2, and it's going to be problems. You can see the panic. It's just quickly last-minute change of direction because of that C2. They have to decide whether they can get round it, whether they can get in front of it. And it's horrible to have that happen to you all at the wrong time. French have done well. Spanish, it's going to be Great Britain that have to go long here. But that C2 just destroyed the plans that these three crews had coming into the portage. That's just going to happen occasionally when two races are on the course at the same time.
The Spaniards coming into the feed zone as well.
The French are away a little bit. but all three are going to get in together. Drama's over. So French are in. Great Britain will run to the end. Spaniards this time, again what's left, a little bit dodgy getting their boat into the water, but away go the French. Great Britain with them, no problems at all. Spaniards are going to close the gap, and it's going to be back to normal for these guys.
Well, let's watch the stopwatches now, because if there's any drama emerging, it'll be from the pair in the single boat that are chasing them. We said the pace in amongst the three was very pedestrian coming down to the turn can, and there was a far more intense pace coming from the chasers that were clearly homing in on them like a Scud missile. They're in the Portage right now, so let's see whether they manage to make any ground on them, if they can add some spice into the closing couple of laps of this race. But back at the front, this time it is Hamish Mackenzie and David Evans who back at the front. On their right, their countrymen and training partners Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis. Vakashi and Varga.
So the Hungarians who were making that charge, they were behind these Australians. They're just getting in together here. They're not on screen. But the Hungarians are definitely up their game from the first few laps. They're going to run out of time, I think, to close the group in front. But they've really stepped it up. They've through the Australians. That's the Australians in shot now. The Spaniards, who were with the Hungarians as they came down back past our commentary box moments ago, are no longer with them. And it's Hungary, Balázs Bodnar and Adam Horvath making a charge through the field, 45 seconds off the group in front of them.
So if my maths is right, it's one full lap and then the short lap, and I suspect it's just too big an ask for them to try and get onto the bunch that they can see in the distance ahead of them.
That's the group they're looking at, and they're 45 seconds behind that group, currently being led by the French. This is the second Spanish crew. They're in no man's land now. They've been left by the Australians and the Hungarians. And Group 2 continues their journey round the course. Spaniards moving up to the right of the French to get on the side wave. Just a little bit more comfortable there.
And Gomez and Sanchez have actually been scratching for that wave for a lot of this race. They've been the weaker of the three boats there, I think. Now the pace is back right off.
All three boats pretty comfortable at this pace.
It's about time somebody looked over their shoulder. There might be a little chatter amongst this bunch.
Thing is, if they look back, they're only going to see that one Hungarian boat.
Yeah.
And it's not an intimidating sight. They don't know that they're travelling much faster than they are. They'll look back, they'll still think it's the boat that's been behind them all the way, which is the Australians. They'll just see a single boat back there. Oh, actually the Australians have caught those Hungarians now, so it's a two-boat chase group, which is slightly more intimidating. There's the gap. You've got a little C2 between them and the group in front. That's a 45-second gap. Italians have just put in at the Portage in front of us. That's Borgotti, who had such a torrid time yesterday in the heat.
And he stepped up to the plate nicely today, actually. I fully expected
pretty impressive
to
see him do that. He certainly didn't look well when he was like, oh, this is the front. Oh, it's such a shame we didn't come in 5 seconds sooner. Vargas.
They've hit something in the water.
Oh, my
They've hit
word.
something in the water.
No.
It really looks like Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis have lost their steering. They've hit something
that
underwater.
Is brutal.
Oh, that has...
Evans and Mackenzie are the only hope left now. They need to stay with the Hungarians.
And the Hungarians have sniffed it. They've sensed something major has happened in the bunch. So now it's all up to Hamish Mackenzie and David Evans to stick with him.
The boys know the course up there, and they've just hit something completely random, I would suggest. A log, something sticking up. That's just unlucky. And you can't do anything about that.
And I can just rewind the clock after.
They are in the foreground. They're out. They're done.
Yeah, they're done. There was a report from some of the paddlers training that they thought they were touching an object. They actually dropped the level of this drift by half a meter. They went through, they cleared out everything, and then they raised it back to its normal level, and then went on and raised it another 15 centimeters to make sure that there was nothing in contact. So I'm astounded. What on earth would they have struck?
Yeah, there's an outside chance that if you're leading, that one of the paddlers on the wash can clip your rudder heavily with their paddle. But I mean that's a bit far-fetched. To be fair, it's unlikely at best. But it's just far more likely they hit. You can see him in the background there. It's horrible to watch.
There's no steering.
They're trying to get back to here so they can maybe get a new rudder, and maybe they can do it in time. But
that's their bronze.
Look at it. That's just horrible.
Very sad to watch, but they definitely haven't given up.
They haven't. They're trying to get back home.
Yeah, it's a real pity for them. A really strong combination for us.
If the South African management are out there and they're not watching this, they need to get a spare rudder to whatever area they can to put on this boat, because those boys are giving it everything to get back here in time to preserve their bronze medal, and there needs to be someone waiting here with a rudder ready to put on that boat for them.
But meanwhile, at the front of the race, the Hungarians went for it again and covered nicely by Hamish Mackenzie and David Evans. So they still in with a solid for.
Yeah, they're trying so hard to get back here.
There's 10 strokes, and then at the front of that boat, Hamish Lovemore has now got to stop and just put in a bow draw stroke to keep it going straight, which makes me think they've knocked the rudder clean off that boat.
I think you're right, because if it was forced over to one side, they wouldn't have the option of going both ways, which is what they've still got at the moment. So they've just got no rudder blade on there at all, and you've got to admire their efforts in getting back. And
this is where some wild water experience would come into play quite nicely, or C1 training, where the whole boat is controlled by leaning. But so I'm sure they'll get the hang of that pretty quickly. But very hard work, and I'm sure their hearts are in their throats right now.
Okay, just to our left, I can see the South African support crew. They've got a rudder down onto the landing stage. This is going to be very stressful, mostly for the guy who's changing that rudder. He's going to be all fingers and thumbs. He's got to undo a little bolt. He's got to thread the rudder through the hole, and he's going to get it in there and tighten it up enough so that it doesn't drop out. And this is a nightmare.
Look at them, they're in shot there. There's Hamish in the front, pulling hard on the left to try and get the boat going straight. Callum trying to give him as much power from the back. Now he's pulling it on the right, both pulling on the right. I'm pretty sure he's calling it as the boat rolls. Oh, they're two young lions in this boat, knowing that this is going to potentially be a medal or heartbreak for them.
It's already heartbreak, Dave. It really is. It's painful to watch, but you've got to admire them for doing this. The easiest thing to do would have just been to throw your toys and call it a day, and absolutely they haven't done that.
Oh, no matter what, these guys are going to come home to a hero's welcome, because the way they've responded to this has been magnificent.
Yeah.
Quit, not in my vocab, I'm afraid.
They haven't even lost half the distance yet between the lead group and the trailing group.
Oh, but look at the chasers. Look at
but the camera foreshortens that.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep positive, Dave. Keep positive, man.
You've got two-thirds of a lap to go. They'd need to get two-thirds of a lap into the Portage out and get that rudder changed. And
they can just come in to the landing stage, surely. Why not? They've only got to get back to here. Then somebody's got to change that rudder. It's going to take, 30 seconds, 40 seconds to change a rudder. They're going to lose that time as well.
Weaving all over the water.
But they're in all sorts of trouble back there.
I've got to say that seismic shift of power has just gone straight back to Hungary here, because now you've got a super established crew up against a super young crew who I think would have considered themselves lucky passengers in that first bunch and were relying on their teammates. That whole balance of power has shifted. And if I was sitting in that boat with Vakassia and Varga, I would be feeling a whole lot more comfortable than I would have been 5 minutes ago.
Now, the only disadvantage for the Hungarians here is when they're sitting on the wash of the South Africans, because they're so light, so there actually isn't one. So they should just keep pulling the whole way.
Okay, these boys, it looks from the visual from the commentary, if we look up the course, they're only about a minute behind the leaders. So their support crew is ready for them. They're down on the landing stage, and I think they've got about a minute to play with before the chase group catches them.
This is exhausting. You can see Hamish Lovemore on the front there having to use those huge big strokes at the front of the boat just to try and keep it straight.
Okay, so they've actually recruited Pedro from the Nello support team, who I would think is going to be the best man for this job. If they get him on the case, then I think the job is going to be done as quickly as it's possible to do it. There's no one's changed more rudders than Pedro in his time. It's an Allen key to take off the rudder hatch, or you just rip it off, and then it's undoing the bolt. The boys are going to try and... they're not even headed this way. They need to get over here.
looks like they're going to
Are
do
they going to try and finish the whole course?
They're
like
going to
that?
try and do at least the full lap. They are.
They've gone too far to come in now.
They've got slightly more control over that
Oh,
boat.
my word.
They've got slightly more control over the boat.
They haven't
no,
got
they
enough.
haven't.
They
No.
haven't got enough control over the boat to finish this in third place. I don't think. Yeah, it's still a huge gap behind them.
That must have been a massive call to make in the boat. They can see
Oh
the
my-
support team waiting. They've
Do you think
decided
they saw them?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. They've been shouting to them from the bank, but they've decided that they're going to try and go to low. They don't want to risk the time lost by coming into the jetty. Logic would say they might have had the time, but in the heat of the moment, this is your race. This is your gold medal. This is your bronze medal. I beg your pardon. And this is two young guys that just will not quit, and they're going to make a plan. It's an ugly plan. It's a painful plan. It's exhausting them.
Okay,
And
support crew are making their way round to the Portage. They're going to do this in the support lane now. And I think they are going to get to the support lane before the chase group catch them. There's no doubt about that. They're moving well enough.
and there's about a minute and a half in it.
I don't think the chase group have any idea this is going on.
No, they don't.
They
So
can see that there's a boat falling off that front group, but they don't know they're in trouble.
if we had radio comms into that bunch and said, listen, suddenly bronze is up.
And how close are the Hungarians now to that chase group? That chase group is going to increase in size, I think. Here's the leaders.
Well, maybe that's the battle plan, Ivan. If they had come into the jetty, the chase group would have seen that for sure. And then they would have turned on the gas because suddenly that last medal would have been up for grabs. So they've successfully disguised that by weaving down the course like they have.
But look at them going down the course there. It's horrible to watch.
Oh, now they're going to miss those bottom turn
They're
cans.
just losing time all the time. But this group is a long way behind them.
And thanks to the curve of the river, they actually can't
They
see
can't
what they're
them,
doing.
That's very true.
Callum Davis's mum is Kim Popel. She's going to be pacing around you like a tiger
You
in a
would
cage.
not want to be a parent
My
in this
word.
situation. Most definitely you wouldn't.
And that chase group is just
There is an option
casually ticking down.
of a medal from someone here. But it's a... Oh,
They're
those
hobbling
boys
and-
have got to get aligned for the turn. That's going to be one of the hardest things.
The turn is going to be a nightmare. They're coming in straight on that
Yeah.
turn. Callum in the back there is just going to have to do a
Here they
massive
go.
brace.
They're just approaching the turn now.
Now make a
There's the
plan.
turn boat.
Big left-hand strokes from Hamish in the front. And no, they're
going
putting it
round
like, keep
nicely.
it straight, keep it straight. You don't want to
It's
risk
going
missing
round
one of those.
nicely.
Oh,
Job
well,
done.
well played, boys. Now 300 meters into the Portage. And here's the front race. The Hungarians are coming in hot to the Portage.
Hungarians,
Mackenzie and Evans
no
on the
stress. It's
look at Mackenzie and Evans coming in.
An aggressive entry to the Portage. A very aggressive entry to the Portage. This is going to be
Oh,
problems.
and he stepped over the boat. They're both out clean. They're both out clean.
Yeah, the South African, you've got to hand it to them. They are going for it.
The youngsters are giving it to the better-known Hungarian team. Running their hearts out. This is it.
I can't see it being enough, but you can't fault them for trying.
This is the best roll of the dice they've got.
It's the only roll of the dice they've got, and they're rolling it well. So they're all going to get in together. The Hungarians put in nicely.
They're
And
going
they're
to
both
need
away. South Africans first.
Hamish Mackenzie,
Bekasi
Dave
working
Evans.
hard in the front of that Hungarian boat. It's not easy for these boys, but the moment they make contact, I think the odds stack in favour of the Hungarians again.
It's now less than 1,000 meters. We're going to need 1,000 meters at 150% from Hamish Mackenzie and Dave Evans. The Hungarians are suddenly looking really comfortable. It took them no time at all to get up onto that wash.
They know they've got excess speed in hand, but the real intrigue is coming into the Portage now. It's going to be so tight now for these boys, whether they can get their rudder changed before that group catches up.
This is a heroic effort. That boat,
I genuinely hope they hold on to their medal now. I really, really do.
this bronze will be worth 3 golds if they manage to pull it off. Boat weaving all over the place. Let's hope that support crew is going to be quicker than the fastest Formula One pit crew you've ever seen. They're almost at that Portage.
They can't even get into the Portage, poor guys.
Considering how well they've done to keep that boat going for as far as they've gone, maybe it's not even worth stopping to change the rudder. The time they lose to keep going, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think they're going to keep going. It looks like they're going to keep going. So I think Hamish
They're going to
Lovemore
press
actually
on.
made the right
They're
decision
going to try
here,
and finish
because changing
without
the
a
rudder.
rudder. There just is no rudder on that boat at all. You know what I think's happened? I think the whole rudder has dropped out. It happens occasionally. There's no rudder at all. There's no rudder stem there. There's nothing. The whole rudder has dropped out of there, and they have got a very nervy 1,000 meters now. But I think they're going to do it. The others have got a minute to close in 4 minutes, and I don't think it can be done.
I honestly think that Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis have made the right decision here. The time they would have wasted turning an Allen key, it would have taken years. The feeling of turning it is, but yeah, they're still in with the shot here. The chasing group is at the takeout, so they're getting closer, but it's possible. I think they can hang on to that bronze medal.
So McKittrick and Peterson from Great Britain taking the initiative on their last portage, ahead of the French, ahead of the Spaniards, but it's McKittrick and Peterson who are going to get in first, and it's so close. There is a medal on offer. It's going to be very, very tight for the South Africans, and I think they're going to be caught. They are going to be caught.
The chasers
the gap isn't big enough anymore. So there's a medal on offer here for somebody, and McKittrick and Peterson take the initiative.
And up ahead, Lovemore and
I
Davis.
feel almost guilty feeling excited for the Great Britain team, because it isn't fair that this is happening to the South Africans, but they are in imminent danger now of being caught.
And Ivan,
they are going to be caught. I'm sorry, guys.
They're out on their feet, to be perfectly honest. It has been exhausting trying to pull that boat in a straight line.
I'm
and
sorry.
they're still bobbing and weaving all the way up to that short turn can. They've sniffed blood. The chasers are in, and the British crew are in pole position right now.
Chase is on, and the South Africans, it's going to be hateful to see, but they're going to get overtaken just before, between the turn and the bridge. They just can't do it. It can't be done. So there's the leaders. The boat in picture has been lapped, and they're coming back from the turn now. Vakassi is already leading with Varga, and it's game over. There isn't a way past for the youngsters from South Africa. It's just...
Yeah, and I almost sense that in them. Well, there's no short of guts in this. There they go. There they go on the outside. Hamish McKenzie and David Evans.
They're giving it a go.
They are giving it a go. To hell with you guys. We're going to chase you all the way to the line. It doesn't matter that it hurts.
It's not going to be a fruitful chase, I'm afraid.
And there's
Varga and Vakassi are away and clear.
There's just another gear in that boat. We always knew it was there. We always knew it was going to be brutal when they found it and engaged it, and that's what they've done. And they've dropped it. You can see that the pace is suddenly tapped off.
Vakassi home and dry. They always had that end sprint in them. But huge kudos to the young South Africans, Evans and McKenzie. Unbelievable race from them. Absolutely unbelievable. Would never have had them in with a chance of staying with a crew like that.
Under 16s. Varga and Vakassi take gold. Second place going to Hamish McKenzie and David Evans.
And now it's a painful wait to see what comes out of this turn.
Believe, Ivan, believe.
I'm sorry, guys, I don't believe anymore.
It's 500 meters.
They did make the right decision carrying on, but they're just going to run out of time.
On the way down, somehow
there they are. There it is. It's not happening.
The vultures are circling, I'm afraid. The vultures are circling.
There's a bronze medal coming for somebody in that second group after all this time.
Now they've got that boat more or less trim. They just need to keep it on an even keel. Here they go. So they've already lost that trim on it. Well, the overtaking is happening right now.
And now they just pile across the front of the group.
And suddenly we have the Spaniards, Gomez and Sanchez, who've gone to the front.
Spaniards are looking good.
I said earlier
they pointed them out as the boat that was struggling, but a sniff of a medal changes an attitude very, very quickly. Oh, the boys in the background there, they're watching this to their left. And I don't know, life isn't fair.
Gutted just doesn't say enough. But let's focus on the race for bronze now. The Spaniards at the front of the bunch as they approach the bridge. This makes them 350 meters out. On their side,
this is a huge finish for these three boats now.
And Briac Labe in the white boat in the French colours. Joseph Peterson and Oscar McKittrick can still pull this out of the bag. They've been looking strong in the second half of this race. But the Spaniards have suddenly got second wind.
And here it goes. Everyone's in on this one. But the Spaniards have got too much for either of the other crews. French are dipping over the back of the Spanish boat now. McKittrick and Peterson are going to be the second in this field, I think. The French are out. They're done. So it's a straight race for third and fourth. It's going to be Spain third, Great Britain fourth, France fifth. Huge result for the Spaniards. They looked like they were dried up early on. Third place for Spain, fourth for Great Britain. Brilliant result for Great Britain, to be fair. And through come the French. And as much as they're getting applause from the crowd, the applause is going to double, triple, and probably even more in about a minute's time when these boys cross the line.
And there's a moment between Hamish Lovemore in the front of that boat. He took a moment before he lined it up for the umpteenth time to try and keep it going straight to his mate Callum Davis, who's just had the worst birthday present that a young teenager could possibly ever have, but they have not quit for a second. 2 lion hearts in the boat. They're going to come home a distant 6th and 7th. But there's smiles on the faces. Look at that. They knew
I'm
that.
not sure they were smiles, to be fair.
No, there's a smile in there. They drew a card from the bottom of the pack today. And the Hungarians are now just saying that was monumental. Huge
It
treat
was
to
monumental from any perspective. Yeah,
Callum Davis is in tears in the back of that boat.
There's no neutral fan that isn't impressed by that.
Yeah.
You look back on the decisions they made. I think you're right, Anne. It was the right decision, but maybe at the first time, if they'd come down this side of the river to their support crew, maybe you needed to get someone up to them.
I think the only way they could have hung in there with a rudder change would have had to been on the opposite bank on the inside of that turn, where they literally didn't have to deviate from their course, and that would have kept them in with a chance. But they had a gutsy performance and they went all the way, and yeah, we're proud of them.
I don't think there's anyone on site or on the live stream today who isn't proud of that crew. Now under the bridge comes the leader in the junior men's C2. They're coming in for their finish.
Also got the finish of Daniel Mole and Mitchell Cronin in the Australian K2.
Hungarians in, trying to work it out now. 7th place, Australians in 8th, already across the line, and the lead C2.
The Hungarians gifted the lead when there was drama early on in the race. Penalty of 30 seconds being dished up to the German crew of Heine and Mode after they took the Dubois Dunilax out of the race. That opened the door for the Hungarians. They seized that opportunity brilliantly, and they're taking it all the way down to the line. Another gold medal for Hungary. Daniel Ferges and Sebastian Simon, gold.
And as they finish, the young crew of Evans Mackenzie come across to get their boat out to go through scrutineering, and heroic effort from those boys today. Under 16s, they've got a couple more years left, and you could not have asked for more from those two boys.
Huge hugs and tears.
Yeah, they covered some big moves by some very big athletes in that race.
Yeah.
And they were stressed. Let's not pretend they weren't stressed doing it, but they did it.
Let's keep an eye on this shot if we can, because in the black shirt there's tears down her face as well. But Callum Davis' mum, Kim, is waiting for them to get to the jetty. Given that craft has zero navigation, it might take a little while, but you don't ever want to be a parent watching helplessly from the bank as your child deals with something like that. But what you can do is take away that was a colossal show of courage and determination. Down to the finish comes the second Spanish boat. It's Gonzalez and Palacios, Eloy Palacios and Favela Gonzalez.
You could tell from the rear shot of that crew. That's a crew with a lean out there, that Spanish crew. That was awful. There's one lean in one way, one lean in the other. We're all familiar with it. We know how painful that is. And that's a brutal way to paddle around a race on your own. But going back to the boys there, you wouldn't wish that on anyone in sport. But moments like that are inspirational to an awful lot of people. And there is a positive side to it. Not for that crew, but for a lot of other people watching. And it happens in sport, and those boys dealt with it as well as it could possibly have been dealt with. And really,
well, let's keep an eye on them here, because
admiration for
as they come into the finish, Hamish's brother Tom is sitting on the bank. These guys are going to come home to an absolute rock star welcome.
French C2 finishing in second place in their race. The Germans have only just left the Portage for the last time. So France second in that race.
Thomas and Leo Dubois-Denilak. Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis now navigating that.
There was a huge
Him is Callum.
people from every.
Absolutely, this boy.
Yeah, they'll be inconsolable for a bit, but what will be talked about in 10 years' time from this race? It won't be the winners, that's for sure. On their way up to their final top turn, the German C2 Heine mode, they took that brutal punishment of a 30-second stand out while the others paddled away from them, and they've never really gained momentum from that point on.
And down to the boat control jetty, there's just a stream of people coming in to give Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis a consoling hug. Hugs of admiration, it must be said.
The last thing any of those boys need now is an interview, but it'd be really great to get one with them, to
And
be
there's
fair.
a really cool photograph being set up there at the moment. The two under-16s that capitalized on the opportunity that was gifted to them, Hamish McKenzie and David Evans, to go home and pick up what is going to be an unspeakably surprising silver medal. And Stott, I hope I'm not doing them any disservice, but posing alongside their teammates who they're really fanny with the of the way that it panned out. 6th place in the end eventually for Callum Davis and Hamish Lovemore. Impressive all the way through Vikashi and Adam Varga at the top. That remarkable medal in the under-16s, David Evans and Hamish McKenzie's life coming home second, and then the Spaniards seeing it all unravel in front of them, and after being just a little bit off the edge of that 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th place, Carlos Gomes and Mikel Sanchez coming home to take a medal that 5 minutes from the end of that race they would not have seen coming. Great Britain and France finishing just ahead of Davis and Lovemore.
You're dead right. The Spaniards, Great Britain and France said goodbye to those medals after a lap, and they never had sight of a medal. There was no hope of medals coming. And then just in the last 4 or 5 minutes, there it was, a sniff of a medal. The Spanish changed their attitude completely and were dominant on the finish to come 3rd with a surprise bronze medal. Well done to Great Britain. 4th place, they would have taken that if you'd offered it to them before the event. So they'll be pleased. And the French also, real resurgence in French marathon paddling since Philippe, I've forgotten his name now, Boucheret. Since Boucheret has taken over as their manager, and real resurgence in their team. So well done to the French, well done to the Germans out there in the C2.
Their race effectively ended from a chasing for an overall line owner's point of view when they were saddled with that 30-second penalty on the Portage. Arvid Heine and Jonas Moda completing it. And that's exactly the way to deal with that sort of adversity. When that sort of misfortune gets dumped to you, just swallow it up, wear it, finish the race. Finish strongly as you. They're coming under the bridge. They can see the finish line in front of them. Somewhat distracted by the commotion at the jetty, where the crowd hovering around Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis. Australian athletes coming up to give them a consoling hug. Moda coming 10 kilometers of the juniors, being able to get down to the two young men who have been the focus of attention this afternoon. Two young men whose 6th place is going to be the most talked about. So let's go to Doug Bird right now and catch up with some of the action.
So I've got Levente here with me and Adam. They are the gold medalists here for the Junior K2. It was a stunning display of athletic performance out there. Levente, we're going to be speaking to you, Adam, a little bit shy on the camera. But tell us about your race. It looked, though, today, the South Africans pushed you quite hard.
Yeah, they did. In the beginning, we wanted to lose them. If you can, I think you could see, like in the first 2 portages, okay, let's push, let's try to lose them. We've previously planned to drink in the 2nd portage, but we wanted to lose them, so that's why we decided to drink in the 3rd portage. But we just couldn't lose them. They were so strong. I really feel sorry for the guys. They cracked out and then their steering went bad. But it was really hard, and they paddled really strong.
Now, of course, Adam, yesterday, great performance from him. Was he still able to give you some power from the back of the boat?
Oh, yeah. He pushed me really hard, especially in the end. I was like, oh, we are going so fast. He said it was a bit easier than yesterday's race, so he doesn't feel that tired, but he said of course it was exhausting. It's like more than 40 kilometers in 2 days. It's not it's very much.
Now, we were talking a little bit earlier, you finished with the World Championships for sprints, and now you finished with the World Championships for marathon. Is it time to relax a little bit for you guys?
Yeah, we are going to relax, I think, a month. The whole September is like for holidays, but unfortunately the school is starting, so we have to study. But yeah.
Well, there we go, ladies and gents. The Hungarians, gold medalists. What a performance it has been from them today. Dave, back to you guys in studio.
Thanks, Doug. Well, I can tell you that Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis are on their way to you, Doug. So, wow, this is an interview I'm really looking forward to. Really, really cool moment. As they came off the water, I saw Callum and Hamish getting a lot of consoling hugs and high fives from paddlers. And a few moments ago, Adrian Boros, the Hungarian ace, has just come up and given Hamish a big high five and a big man hug. And you remember a couple of months back, they were racing side by side on the Berg River Canoe Marathon. So they exchanged a lot and learnt a lot of each other and earned a lot of each other's respect. So it was a really cool moment for them, and I venture to suggest that meant an awful lot to Hamish as they got down. So you can hear from the applause that the two most talked about sixth place finishers in this year's championships are on their way to you, Doug. Crowd is going to be desperate, and you can see the smile is slowly returning to Callum Davis's face.
I think they're slowly realising how much the crowd have appreciated what they've done.
So they're getting into the Portage area. So a huge, huge, huge day for Hamish McKenzie and David Evans. As youngsters, as relatively inexperienced paddlers at this level, to be thrust into the cauldron of competition alongside Vikasha and Varga, and to be able to respond like they did, not only to get the silver, but to get such a competitive silver that they fought all the way down to the line, just counts hugely in their favour in terms of their preparation, their temperament, their technical ability. But then that third place just suddenly exploding from third, and then fourth, fifth, sixth.
Ready?
Yep. So let's go to Doug Bird. He's got Hamish Lovemore and Callum Davis with him right now.
Yeah, Dave, Hamish and Callum, for me, absolute heartbreak on the race, but also one of determination and integrity. Callum, it was brutal, man. There's nothing more that can be said, I guess.
Yeah, what happened. There's nothing we can do now. We just have to move on, look onwards and upwards. It's just the start of our career, and yeah, it's just hard knowing that everything was going straight to plan. And we were feeling really good, and something like that happens. But that's the way it is.
Callum, how old are you now?
I'm turned 17 today.
Okay, well, don't panic. There's lots more world champs still to come, and you're certainly going to be up there. Hamish, what happened? Was it, we didn't see any contact with the understern on the portage at any point. Did it happen in the water? Could you feel it?
Yeah, on the last portage we had a good one. We put in and we pushed quite hard. And we all put our paddles on under the bridge, and the other South African crew took up the pull. And then, to be honest, the pedals just dropped flat. We didn't feel like we knocked anything, so it must have been earlier on in the race. But yeah, we definitely didn't hit anything at the stage where the rudder fell out or came off or whatever happened. Yeah.
But guys, you got to take the positives out of this. You were mixing it up with the best in the world in the top three. It was going according to plan. You got to take confidence out that, guys. And for me, I encourage you to do so. Keep on pushing. What is next on the schedule for you?
I'm focusing on sprints next year. We both are, and we're just looking forward to that, the 1,000 meter, and see how it goes. Also, before we leave, I have to say a shout out to my class. What happened there was dreadful, 10 times worse than what's happened today, and I'm really sorry for all those involved.
Oh, they definitely appreciate that message. And Hamish, any final words for you?
Yeah, thanks to the crowd. You guys definitely helped us out at the end there. So huge thank you to everyone for watching and cheering us on.
There we go, guys. Back to you, Dave.
Massive moment. Thanks, Doug. Hamish Lovemore, Callum Davis have just written themselves into the emotional annals of South African canoeing history. And they will be back. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Turning 17 today, got the worst possible birthday present. But if you're going to see what a 17-year-old is made of, it's just been revealed in Technicolor in front of you. So medal ceremony is coming up fairly shortly. No medal ceremony for the junior C2s, but the K2s. Stand by. You're going to hear that Hungarian anthem for another time. Really great crowd has turned out to support them here today. And as you heard from Hamish himself, when things are going against you, the moral support from the crowd counts for huge amounts. Let's go back down to the grass and Doug Bird.
Hamish and David, South African, yes, I'll say it, silver medalists here, and under 16s. Lads, what a race you had today.
Yeah, it was just so surreal the whole time. We couldn't I just couldn't believe it when we made it onto that bunch, and we just got that lucky diamond, and we made it like right around the plan was from the start just to hang into that first portage, because that's where we do our best, is on the portages. And once we were there, we kind of felt safe. But I mean, there's always that chance, as today showed, that there's that chance that anything can go wrong.
Well, I will say that you guys were by far the slickest on the put-ins. I mean, no grabbing on the boats, blades on the jetty, getting in. I mean, being college boys down here, how much did you practice that?
Yeah, I mean, just the drift being a walkaway, we've been practicing for months now, just even our emptying and our put-ins, and we've just been working on them until, I don't know, we wanted to be the best portages on the race, so because we knew that that's where we would have get a kind of a break from some of the people, so yeah.
Well, guys, you're only under 16, so that means that you're back in the mix for next year. You've got to be very excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, super excited. I mean, as anyone would be, but yeah, just get back in the boat, do a hell of a lot of training for next year, so yeah.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Your silver medalists from South Africa, David and Hamish. What a race from these young guns, and they are still under 16s. Think about that. Back to you guys in the studio.
Well, massive moment. The local fans loving every minute of it, and you can start doing some career projections here, Ivan. There's everything for these guys to get excited about. But wherever we travel to next year, it's going to be more of the same, isn't it?
Yeah, you're looking at them. They got 2 years left, and you talk career projections. It's very hard to predict always, but you know they're not going to get any slower. But it's such a big ask for them to move up in terms of medals, because there's always going to be with that big Hungarian crew in the race with them. So, you know, in order to get a movement up the medal table, if you like, to gold, they've got to do some training that gets them down that last 200 meters in touch with the winner still. And there's always going to be some, you know, giant athletes from Hungary who will be able to just pip them on the line. But yeah, it's not that counts in marathon racing. They're on a learning curve. They're survivors. They've survived everything that was thrown at them today, and they learn that. And you take that into the senior racing when the senior racing happens, and it's there that you can overhaul. At junior level, the difference in physicality is too big. But those boys like that, with an attitude like that and a skill set like that, when they get to senior, then is when it will be their time. Not maybe junior, not maybe under 23, but senior will be their time.
Great way to end what has been a thrilling morning of K2 racing for the juniors and the sea boats. Let's have a look at some of the action. I look forward to catching up with you. We'll resume the live stream just ahead of the start at 2:45 for the K1 Under 23 title decider.